Happy Saturday once again, everyone. Welcome to another fun weekend of streaming. Kicking things off today with a wingy, and we got a lot to get into. It's probably not going to be one of the heaviest, most loaded podcasts we've ever had, but still a fair amount to get into because we have a ton of wrestling results from this week. And the wrestling news is what seems to be a little bit on the lighter side for today. So we just have a few tidbits to get into, a little bit of drama, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But then we have a lot to discuss in terms of WWE's overseas tour, which is currently ongoing. Last night's Smackdown from Barcelona, Spain was a wild show, and man, you got to love those international crowds. And this Monday, Raw is live from Brussels, Belgium, and it will be the first appearance of John Cena this Monday night. So we're going to be here to talk about all of it for the next couple of days, and I'll let you know the schedule here in just a little bit. But it's going to be a fun Saturday, Sunday, and Monday here on the channel. I'm ready to rock. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. Like I said, we've got some wrestling news to get into, not a ton. We're going to talk about what to expect Monday night on Raw. We're going to talk about what we saw last night on SmackDown. We'll touch a little bit on NXT Roadblock from this past Tuesday, which was just an incredible show. TNA ran Slammiversary last night with some interesting tidbits in there as well. And AEW Dynamite this past week, or Wednesday, was the fallout from AEW Revolution. And it wasn't the best Dynamite, but couple of interesting things, some good, some bad. We're going to talk about it, specifically MJF getting a Hurt Business card from MVP. He might be looking to be the Owen in that Nation of Domination group there. And we've got a title match next week booked for Dynamite, a street fight between Moxley and Copeland, running back the abysmal main event from AEW Revolution. And I have kind of changed my tune in the last few days about Jon Moxley, and we'll get into that later. Fans are over this. They are going to accept nothing less than Moxley losing the title every single time he gets in the ring. It doesn't matter what creative plans AEW may or may not have in place for Moxley and this run and this run's end. They do not care. Harley Cameron could beat Moxley for the title at this point, and that's all they care about. Total tunnel vision right now when it comes to the fans. All they want is for Moxley to drop that title. And I kind of thought that was a little hasty, after Revolution. Revolution was so good to me, the pay-per-view, that as bad as that main event was, it did not ruin the show for me at all. Plus, I predicted Moxley to win. I wasn't expecting him to lose the title. So I was struggling to understand the outrage. Especially like for argument's sake, what if the plan is for Swerve to win the title at Dynasty? Then isn't this better? Wouldn't you rather have Swerve beat Moxley than Cope beat Moxley? So I didn't quite understand the outrage, but the more and more I've thought about this situation, I'm kind of changing my tune. I'm going to kind of side with the fans on this one. I think AEW can ill afford to have some crazy long angle that overstays its welcome that can be detrimental or do further damage to, your image right now or your ratings or your attendance or whatever the issues are in AEW. There's a few of them. Anything that could make those issues worse, I would try to stay away from if I was Tony Khan, even if that means you need to do a creative pivot. Now, that can often lead to even more problems, but I think if they've got some long-term plan, like for Moxley to drop the title at All In or something like that, you're asking a lot from the fans to wait that long. So we'll talk a little bit about Moxley and how I think that should all wrap up its business here in AEW before the fans just grow fully fed up. But other than that disappointment, like I said, Revolution was still a great show, and Wednesday's Dynamite offered us for some teases of what we might see leading up to now, between now and leading up to All In with Wrestle Dynasty on the horizon, as well as Double or Nothing. So we're just going to talk about kind of like a hodgepodge of things here, a little bit of AEW, a little bit of WWE, a little bit of NXT, a little bit of TNA, and a little bit of wrestling news. And that's pretty much how the podcast is going to go today. Thank you so much for being here, as always, on a Saturday. Do me a favor, you can smash that thumbs up button whenever it's convenient for you. Make sure you are a subscriber if you're not. Also, memberships are open, super chats are open as well. We will answer all of them, and I will give some shout outs here in the chat in 1 second after I let you guys know what's on tap for this weekend. Tomorrow, Sunday, is classic watch-along day here on the channel. We are now doing WrestleManias because it's WrestleMania season. And over the years, we've already done all of the really good WrestleManias. There's still a couple out there to get to, but for the most part, we've we've knocked out all the big ones. So I had penciled in this year, 2025, to be the year that we watched the shitty WrestleManias. Last week we watched WrestleMania 9, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, because last week was Revolution. 2 weeks ago we watched WrestleMania 9. Tomorrow we are going to watch WrestleMania 2, going way back. WrestleMania 2, 1986. I was 9. We're going to watch this one. Not a great WrestleMania, but an interesting one because it did come from 3 different locations. So we will be watching that tomorrow night. The link is already up on the channel. So make sure you join us tomorrow, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, for a WrestleMania 2 watch-along. I also have 3 other WrestleManias penciled in. One of them is not a bad show. The other 2 are not great. We're going to watch WrestleMania 11, maybe next week, maybe a week from tomorrow. We're also going to watch WrestleMania 12. People have been mentioning that one. I've been staying away from WrestleMania 12 because literally almost half of the show is one match, and I just didn't want to be bored to death up here watching Brett and Sean wrestle for an hour with no falls. But we're going to get to WrestleMania 12 this year. And also WrestleMania 23. That's not a bad one. Happened, 22 years ago? No, less than 20 years ago, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, whatever it was, for WrestleMania 23 in Motown. We're going to watch that one sometime between now and April. And then after that, we're still going to squeeze in WrestleMania 1. We might do that during WrestleMania week itself. And I'll look at the calendar. We'll figure out some other ones. But WrestleMania 2 tomorrow, WrestleMania 11, 12, and 23 coming up, all probably in March. So stay tuned for that. Monday is going to be weird on the channel here because I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this yet. I live in California. I live in San Diego. So for me, Raw is going to air at noon because Raw is on Netflix now, so we don't have to wait for the cable stations to play them at local time. Netflix is going to show or air the show live from Belgium. So I believe it's 3 p.m. on the East Coast, noon on the West Coast to watch Monday Night Raw. Here's the problem. I've got my routine blood drawing, my doctor's appointments every Monday, and Monday I'm going in at 2:30 to get a pint of blood taken out. So I'm going to be able to watch the first 2 hours of Raw. So I really, really hope John Cena opens the show. Because if the John Cena, whatever John Cena and Cody Rhodes, and I guess The Rock is probably going to be there too. Well, The Rock might not. Whatever those guys are going to do, it might close the show. So if it's the last angle on the show, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to watch the first 2 hours of Raw, and then I'm literally going to have to leave as soon as John Cena is making his way out to the ring. So we'll see how all that goes. I'm hoping I'll be able to see John Cena's return and his interaction with Cody earlier on in the show, and then maybe I'll have to leave and miss the main event. I'm going to go get that procedure done. I'm going to come home, watch the last 30 minutes that I missed, and then we'll be up here to do a review probably around 5 or 6, or I'm sorry, I should say this Eastern time, probably around 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time is probably when I'm going to be up here. Be about 5 or 6 p.m. my time, and we'll do a review of Monday Night Raw, what we saw, how John Cena looked, what's going on with him, what happened between him and Cody, all that stuff we're going to discuss in a review on Monday. So there will be no Raw watch-along. We're just going to review the show, and I will be up here probably, I would guess, 2 to 3 hours after the show goes off the air. Probably 2.5 hours after Raw goes off the air at the most is when I'll be up here live. So just keep that in mind. I will post a link to Monday's Raw review by tomorrow. As soon as WWE shows some advertisement, anything I can use for a thumbnail while having to make my own, I'll put the link up there, and we'll be doing that Monday. So just keep that in mind. Not totally sure on the start time for that Raw review, but I have a feeling it'll be around 8 or 9 Eastern time. That's pretty much it for the schedule this week. I don't know if you're going to see me other than that until next week's podcast, because on Tuesday I've got to get some dental surgery done. That's fun. So I might be laid up a little bit. In the meantime, we're currently undergoing 40 shorts in 40 days on the channel. I'm giving just a brief rundown of my memories of every single WrestleMania up to WrestleMania 6 so far. That one just dropped today. WrestleMania 7 tomorrow, and we'll be dropping WrestleMania 40 memories one day before WrestleMania 41. So we're going to do one WrestleMania every day leading up to the big show. So keep all that in mind for those of you scoring at home. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat real quick, then we will start getting going with the business at hand today. Because like I said, it was, it's not that juicy of a podcast. I mean, I've got some interesting things in here, but it's the last couple of weeks. I think we've had a few deeper things to talk about, but we'll still find some subjects here. And pardon my voice too. I feel like I'm just starting to maybe come under the weather a little bit. So hopefully I'm not too nasally or anything like that. Being sick sucks. So I'm sick. I got doctor's appointments. I got teeth being, yanked out of my head. I got all sorts of shit going on this week, but that's not going to stop me from being here with you guys. Good to see Max Pokebra. Yeah, you generally hope that Tony had Swerve close out Revolution because there's going to be a pivot and Swerve is going to win the title. Did he come out at the end? I forgot already. Is that what happened? I hope so too. Yeah, I hope so too. We're about to talk about that in a minute, Max. Zane G, good to see you. Good to see you, Tatanani. Good to see you, Melissa, Jay Lambo, Isaac, JL, Dan Price, David Brown in the house, Jay Richter. We've got William Cullen and Blunt Object. Ryan Adams, good to see you, my friend. Rodrigo is here. Gilbert Arbalo. Ben Espinoza. We got Just Smitty. Who else we got? Brandon McNeil. AJ Daniels. Curtis Ozone. Doug Unfunny. Colin Wright. James Jones. Anybody else chiming in this afternoon? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. Let's talk about... What should we talk about first? News is pretty light. Here's a fun story, and it's a report that I really hope is true. WWE may be interested in Jeff Cobb, who I've always liked. Fucking stud. He's like Rhino, but just almost like beefier. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, he's just a tremendous wrestler, and I've always really liked his work, and I've always really liked his look. We've got glimpses, plenty of looks at Jeff Cobb in Japan, and he's worked a little bit in AEW over the years. And word on the street is, according to Sean Ross Sapp, is that WWE has had their eye on Jeff Cobb as of late. And one source indicated to Sean that Cobb actually showed up on the company's internal roster this week. However, no confirmation as of yet. They spoke to sources in AEW, and they were told that he's not expected to join their company. So WWE becoming interested in Jeff Cobb is cool. I'm wondering what took them so long to become interested in Jeff Cobb, as it feels like he was always probably an attainable talent for them to at least talk to. So if Jeff Cobb is coming in, great. I'm not sure what he would do there, if they would put him in like the Bronson Reed category and just try to have him be this big monster for, Reed and Strowman and guys like that to work with. I'm not sure. Or if he'd come in to be part of a group or whatever. I'm not really sure where he would fit in because WWE is loaded with talent. But I also feel like Jeff Cobb is, if is available, any company would want to sign him. So if he comes in, that would be great. Might be NXT, might be main roster, who knows? We'll keep our eye on it. But if Jeff Cobb shows up, that will be fun. Hopefully he does turn up in WWE. I think that would be tons of fun. WWE also announced last night on Smackdown that Backlash will be coming from St. Louis, Missouri on May 10th. So no overseas Backlash. I think Meltzer might have thought it was going to be in the Tokyo Dome or something. Or I think he got fooled by that Wessel Votes tweet a few months back or a few weeks back about the Backlash in the Tokyo Dome, which nobody really believed was true. But Backlash will be in St. Louis, not Tokyo. So just something to keep in mind for May 10th. And a lot of people are already starting to book the main event for that match. And I like it. John Cena defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton at Backlash. I likes. But John Cena's got to win the title first. So we'll see if that happens. Fun match taking place tonight at House of Glory's City of Dreams event. Shout out to Solomonster, who will be on the call for that, our good friend. Indy Hartwell is getting a match against Mercedes Moné. That's really fun. I love Indy Hartwell. I was really bummed out that she got released. Really thought she had more potential than what she was given or what she did there. And I always thought she was a really fun women's wrestler. Like, she just brought an element of fun. And a lot of women do. There's a lot of wrestlers, men and women, that can bring like an element of humor or whatever. But there's something about hers that was just really, really attractive to me. And I really just thought she could be a bigger star than she was. I just thought that like she would be somebody that would always have a spot on the roster. Like you just blink and the next thing you know, Indy Hartwell's been in the company for 10 years. That type of thing. Like just a solid hand, fun, everybody loves her. Always a reason to keep her around. And when she got released, I kind of bummed me out because every time she showed, signs of what she could do, it just never panned out. I really enjoyed the Dexter Lumis stuff. A couple of times they brought that up. She was fun in the way. She's a tall drink of water too, which, kind of sets her apart a bit. And I just thought it was an unjustified release. I was bummed. So happy to see that she's getting a pretty big match here at House of Glory against Mercedes. Now, Indy is not going to win, but who cares? Mercedes is one of the most recognizable women in the world, and this match cannot harm Indy Hartwell at all. If anything, this match might get a couple more eyeballs on her and might get her signed by somebody else. Maybe, the number 2 wrestling company in the world. Just a thought. She is wrestling one of their champions tonight. So best of luck to Indy and Mercedes at the Hog Show. There were some rumblings this week and reports. This came from Fightful Select, but this is something that's already been on a lot of fans' minds, and we even brought it up during the Revolution predictions, and it was regarding the AEW International and Continental Championships that apparently the company does have internal plans to unify. Now, we kind of already sniffed this out. Nobody had to tell us this. This started kind of becoming obvious to some fans over the past few weeks, and we mentioned it in the Revolution review. I'm like, hey, if you've got Okada retaining over Brody and you got Kenny picking up the international title over Takeshita, then you got the Stadium show and All In, Omega, Okada, put a couple of titles in there too to unify them. That could be a lot of fun. More consolidation of these titles. AEW already retired the FTW title last year, right? And I've always thought the Continental title and the international title, that's just a little bit too much. Those titles should be unified, consolidate some things, because it's just too many singles championships. So now if you have the World, the TNT, and then you unify the international and the Continental, you might want to rebrand it into a whole different belt. Who knows? I feel like the Continental would swallow up the international title because they do that tournament every year. But the international title is a better looking belt. So what do you guys in the chat think they should do there? If those two titles come together, would one belt absorb the other, or would it be completely rebranded as a new title? Whatever they do, I feel like they're going to have to keep the name of the Continental Championship, right? Because they do a tournament every year. And assuming that's going to continue, unless they're going to do away with the Continental Classic, but I think that's going to become a staple, doing that round robin once a year. So I feel like the Continental Championship might have to stay as is, but I like the International Championship better in terms of the physical belt, like how it looks. So I don't know what the right thing to do there is, but I'm excited for this. The only thing that kind of sucks is, we'll talk about it in a minute with the Dynamite spoilers, or Dynamite results, excuse me. Kenny announced the little mini 8-man tournament to determine his challenger at Dynasty. But if you already know the match is going to be Kenny and Okada at All In, that kind of sucks because it feels like every title defense they're going to have is going to be predictable. We know they're going to carry their titles into All In, and that's where they're going to have their match. So anything that Kenny and Okada does between now and then is going to be almost essentially a guaranteed victory, right? So if that's the case, I think that's great. Big stadium show in Texas. It'll be fun to see if Okada and Kenny can even scratch the surface of some of the things they did in Japan in front of the Tokyo Dome audiences and stuff. So I like that idea, and I like them reducing the amount of championships. It was already too many, and now things feel a little bit more normal. If you combine those two titles, they don't feel like the company that's got too many titles. You know who does? WWE does. They're the company with the titles flying out their ass now. Year or two ago, it was AEW with the all the Ring of Honor talent on the show, and all the fans were freaking out. It's all these championships and all these championships. That's not the case anymore. Now WWE's got all the championships, and all of a sudden, you don't hear those complaints. But it is smart, I think, for AEW to consolidate some of these titles. You had way too many belts running around in that company, plus the Ring of Honor stuff. It got to the point where it felt like 1 out of every 3 wrestlers has a title around their waist, and that's fucking stupid. And I'm glad to see that's not the case anymore. That's what you want. When you see something that bugs you as a wrestling fan, or you see something from one of the wrestling companies that you perceive as a mistake, isn't it nice when they clean up those mistakes? Yeah. So all that belt complaining, AEW, they're fixing that. They're fixing that. Did I just stall here or something? What's going on? Are we still online? Are we good? I can't be seen. Pardon the interruption here. It does not say that we're offline. It says that we're online. So I have just seemed to have paused on screen. I think we're back. Okay. Are we good? I think we're good. All right. I never lost connection, but when I'm watching over here so I can see the chat, I just kind of paused and it looked like we were buffering. So there does not seem to be any issues over here, but we might have paused. Sorry about that. Anyway, like I was saying, I like that story and that report about AEW unifying those titles because I think that's the right move. And I'm excited to see what happens with those titles and how they rebrand or rename those two titles that will now become one. We'll have to wait and see. There was a little bit more news or a few more details, I guess, on that Jade Cargill and Shayna Baszler drama. Now, we touched on this last week on the podcast, and we talked about how Jade, might have gotten some heat, or there was a confrontation backstage after she kind of tapped out to Shayna Baszler when she wasn't supposed to. And then there was the report of Shayna or Jade telling Shayna that she needs to learn how to work and all of this. And so we kind of touched on all that and unpacked all that last week. And that was pretty mind-boggling to hear. Even if it's just a rumor, we don't know if it's confirmed or not. But I mean, if Jade Cargill is telling somebody else how to work, that's rich, especially somebody like Shayna Baszler. And, I can see that locker room being rubbed the wrong way by Jade. It sounds like she might have a little bit of internal heat. And we've seen that in the past. This isn't like unique or different or new. There have been cases like this in the past, especially when you come in from another company or you come in with a big contract or you come in with a lot of hype and you don't give the locker room or present yourself to the locker room in a way that is respectful enough for them. You can get heat. It can cause issues and whatnot, especially if you might have an ego. Who knows? Goldberg is a good example of this. He was in WCW and he learned under that fucked up system. And then he came to WWE where the locker room, at least at the time, was relatively, cohesive and there was good morale. And you got this guy coming in like a shit doesn't stink. And, right off the bat, he's getting in backstage fights with Chris Jericho and stuff. So I think with Jade Cargill, it might be kind of similar. She might be coming in thinking she's all hot shit, but I would like to think that Jade is way smarter than that. And she knows that she can't just be waltzing in there saying, hey, bitches, what's up? I'm taking over. I don't think Jade is that stupid. So if there are problems and there were issues, I totally believe that because backstage confrontations and issues and arguments following matches are common and will never stop happening in either company, no matter what. Tempers flare sometimes. But when you heard some of those details last week, it was kind of like, man, that's so crazy. It's almost difficult to believe that Jade would say that, so we don't really know. But there were a few more details this weekend, and granted, a lot of the stuff was coming from Meltzer. So Meltzer's not had a great week this week with some of his reporting, but that's why Meltzer's Meltzer. And you read Meltzer knowing that you're reading Meltzer and don't get too wound up in it. just read it, take it for a grain of salt. And according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week, there was another part of that story about the tap out where Jade had shown Shayna like a bruise on her arm, and Shayna said something to the effect of, if I was shooting, we would both know it, which I loved that because, imagine Jade is a big, strong, powerful woman, but Shayna Baszler would beat the fuck out of her if they got into a fight. So I really think that that's kind of funny how Baszler was like, I'd fucking kill you. You'd know if I was shooting, trust me. And when you watch that back, and again, this is all just speculation, hearsay, so we don't really want to dissect anything because we really don't know what's true and what's not. But when you watch that tap out, when Jade is kind of going like that, I think she's signaling to Shayna to ease up on the hold, but I don't know where that would have caused some sort of a bruise on her arm or something. And even if you did get a bruise on your arm, you're in a wrestling match. I would assume if you are a professional wrestler, you might get a bruise every so often. That's just my guess, my educated guess. I've only been watching wrestling for 44 years, so I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. But I think if you wrestle sometimes, you might get bruised. So I don't know about any of this. If any of this is remotely true, Jade better check herself because she is too spectacular looking of a star. Her look is a 10 out of 10. She is the Lex Luger of the women's division, and she's one of those wrestlers that has beyond a good look, you know? So she's got all that. She's got the frame, the tools. I would like to see her get better in the ring and get as many reps in the PC and all that as possible. But it seems like she's got some heat attached to her between the tap out thing, the confrontation with Shayna Baszler, some confusion about her asking off for holiday time. But again, that's internal stuff. I do not care who gets off for what holiday. It's not my problem to be mad about that. But I would think that if you are a wrestler who's been in the company for 15 years busting your ass and working the holidays is mandatory for you, but not for Jade, of course that might do a little bit of damage to your morale or ruffle a feather or two. But we don't even know if any of that is really true. Just some confusion about it. But it's going to be interesting to see how much more we hear about the Jade Cargill stuff because, you know, it took a while for that news to come out. I mean, I think the incident with Jade and Shayna was last year, right? So we're just hearing about this now in March. When AEW has problems backstage, we hear about it as it's happening, you know? So with this one, it took a while. Things might by now be completely cooled off. Shayna Baszler and Jade might be riding together for all we know. It might be completely a non-issue and it's all been dealt with and it's been dealt with for months. We're just hearing about it now. But if any of this hasn't been dealt with and these issues are still ongoing, there are relationships in the locker room that are strained, you got to look at Jade Cargill as the cause of this then, you know, and if they can't better that situation, whether it be getting Jade to have a better attitude or whatever the issue here, I don't even want to blame Jade, but that's what a lot of these reports are insinuating, that she's starting to rub talent the wrong way. If any of that is true, I could see WWE releasing her. You know, it's like, you just want to cut your losses at some point. Yeah, she looks great. She looks like $1 million, but do you really want that controversy, that distraction in your locker room? I'm not saying Jade Cargill is CM Punk or anything like that, but she might have a chip on her shoulder. And if that's the case, she needs to either be brought back down to earth. You know, this happened to Big Show. You know, what's going on with Jade right now feels similar to what went on when Paul White came into WWE in 99. Big, awesome. Clearly he's going to be used and pushed and be a big part of the company. But if you're not behaving backstage the way you're expected to, that's going to adversely affect your career, your push, your spot in the company. And it did. And a lot of wrestlers, you know, didn't really care for him too much. And he was sent to OVW. He had a couple of come to Jesus meetings in WWE with The Undertaker and with management and things like that. So if any of this is going on with Jade, I just hope it all gets worked out. I hope it doesn't cause any more problems. And you have to wonder if any of that factored into her missing all that time, because there's also been some confusion about whether or not she was injured. Mike Johnson has been insisting the entire time that she was never injured. Sean Ross Sapp insists the opposite. Says if she wasn't injured, then creative team, her friends, medical staff, everybody was worked. So some believe she was injured, some believe she wasn't. I don't fucking know. I feel like with the timing of these stories, I can understand how someone might think, oh, WWE took the belt off of her, got her off TV for a while, maybe as a punishment or something. I could understand fans having that thought process. Don't know if that's the case or not, but all of that happening at the same time of these stories makes us kind of wonder what's going on there. So whatever's going on with Jade in WWE and Shayna Baszler, I hope it's all been worked out and we don't get any further problems from it, because Jade is right in the middle of all the Naomi stuff and Bianca Belair stuff, and she's got a match next week on SmackDown against Liv Morgan. We'll talk about how that got set up here in just a little bit. But the Jade Cargill stuff is still in the news. Been over a week now that people are still talking about what's going on with her behind the scenes in WWE, so we'll have to see. Now that she's been in the company for, how long has she been there? A year and a half? How long of a deal do you think she signed? 3 or 5? Probably 3. So if things don't get better, she might choose to go back to AEW and go dominate over there. Maybe she just realizes, nope, there's just too many big fish in this pond. Too many Biancas, too many Charlottes, too many Beckys, too many women in this locker room that have been with each other for a long time. I'm not welcome here, type of thing. And then she goes back to AEW with a ton of WWE experience now and exposure. And she goes back to AEW and gets back her TBS title and holds it for 3 years. Who knows? Hope everything gets worked out, whatever the case may be. All right, like I said, Monday Night Raw. This Monday, we'll be in Brussels, Belgium. It's going to be airing at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for us here in the States, so you don't have to wait until local time. Just fire up your Netflix and you can watch live. Unfortunately, most of us here in the States couldn't watch Smackdown live last night because it airs on USA. So you would need a VPN to get into the Netflix to watch it, internationally. A lot of people here in the States were able to do that. But with Raw, you're not going to need any of that because it's just on Netflix anyway. So we'll be watching Raw live as it airs on Monday, and I'm really happy about that because leading up to this, remember how I was talking about being disappointed that John Cena's first televised appearance since the heel turn is going to come on a taped show? I'm like, man, I don't want to get the spoilers for that. I usually don't care about spoilers, but this is one spoiler I don't want to get. I don't want to see pictures of John Cena and Cody in the ring or videos shot with cell phones or any other way that we could get spoiled by this on social media. I don't want to see any of that. So the fact that I didn't even put it together, well, shit, Raw's on Netflix. Why do we have to wait until 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific to watch it? We don't. It's going to air live on Netflix, noon for me here on the West Coast, and that is where we are going to see John Cena appear for the first time. And I assume Rock is going to be with him, but does Rock go to Belgium? I don't know. Do Rocks go to Belgium? He might not want to. So we may or may not see Rock. I kind of hope that we do, but I think the main confrontation is going to be John Cena and Cody Rhodes. So it might not be Cody, or it might not be Rock, but it's definitely going to be Cena, and it's definitely going to be Cody. And apparently, John, one thing we've talked about leading up to this is that it's very important to me as a fan that John Cena looks very different when we see him back on TV. Like, he can never wear the hat and the wristband and the shirt again. That has to go. If he comes out there wearing that shit, I think the whole thing falls flat. You can't come out there wearing that and then be a heel. It's just not going to work to me. So he's got to wear something else. He's got to look different. I'm really curious to see what his wrestling gear is going to look like. He might still stick with the jorts. Maybe he just goes all black jorts, all black sneakers or something like that. But I think the look needs to go beyond that. I think the man should grow a beard. At the very least, he has to do something about that bald spot. And apparently he has. There's a video floating around that was captured of him yesterday with the hair's still a little long, but it's darker and the bald spot is gone. Now, for all we know, he's on a shoot. I don't know if he's doing a movie or what, and he shows up on Raw and that bald spot is still there. I was kind of hoping he would just go back to kind of a crew cut, like where he just buzz it. Like how he had it in like 06 or 07, whatever year that was, when it was like short. Do that, get yourself in the tanning bed. You might look halfway decent. But it does look like he might be having a better hair day when we see him on Raw on Monday. And I think that's really important. Now, it looks like he just did some of the Nacho Man, Billionaire Ted spray shit on the back of his head. It's probably just some spray and stuff, or maybe it's whatever the hell LeBron is doing. But Cena looks like he may have cleaned up that horrendous hair, because the way it was getting long, he was reminding me of Marty McFly in Back to the Future. Not Marty, George McFly in Back to the Future. Crispin Glover, just with that floppy hair. So hopefully he'll be out on Raw looking better. He'll have a different look to him. I'm curious about the music. I'm curious about all of that. Cody's pretty pissed. He's going to want to get him some of John Cena on Monday night, so we'll see how they execute that segment. But I think Raw on Monday is going to really set the tone for how this Mania build is going to be. Because if Cena's return as a heel for any reason doesn't live up or falls flat or something, it's going to be tough to recover from that. Luckily, they're in Belgium. They're going to be in front of an international crowd. And if last night's SmackDown was any indication, the crowd on Monday will be nuts. Every international crowd is. They're so much fun. They have so much more energy than the fans here in the States who just look at their phone or don't cheer or show any emotion until they look around to both sides and make sure other people are doing it too. So international crowds are just a little bit more free. They do what they want. They're not such following sheep like people are here in the States, and they just have fun. And I think that Monday's Raw is going to be a can't miss, and I really doubt that WWE is going to fuck up the John Cena heel turn. But I do think that his appearance is crucial. How he looks is crucial. And it's all about the hair and the outfit. I don't know if he's going to be out there in a suit. You know, I think it would be funny if, like, you know, because John Cena's a mega dork. We all know that, right? You know, and it would be funny if, like, The Rock took John Cena out shopping, you know, like a Pretty Woman style video montage. And, you know, Rock sitting in a chair with a cigar as John Cena's coming out. You know, they spoof this in Dumb and Dumber, the movie Dumb and Dumber. And John Cena coming out in different outfits and Rock approving or disapproving. And Rock taking him out to dress him up, make him look a little bit more refined so he doesn't look like a box of Fruity Pebbles. That could be fun and entertaining, perhaps. And some of that Rock style and Rock influence rubs off on the very impressionable Cena that's been stuck in the same outfit for 17 years. That could be funny. But either way, John Cena, he's got to look different. He's got to speak different. And he's got to be different. And I'm kind of now looking forward to this. Well, I have been ever since the heel turn. But given Cody's energy since this, and especially last night on SmackDown, just annihilating The Miz and just saying, I don't give a fuck about anybody. I don't want to talk about anybody or talk to anybody unless his name is John Cena. That is all I care about. So, John, if you're going to be there on Monday, I'm going to be there too. So Cody's pissed. So I think all of this is going to be really fun. And, you know, when you think about this compared to how it would have been if Cena would have stayed a babyface, this would have been one of the most boring builds of all time. Now it might be one of the best. So we kick things off Monday. Like I said, Monday around 8 or 9 Eastern, we will be up here to do a review of that Monday Night Raw. We got to talk about last night's SmackDown in Barcelona, Spain. Interesting tidbit about last night's show. It marked the final appearance of Lillian Garcia as a SmackDown announcer. She came back right after Samantha Irvin bounced, but it was a short-lived return. She's going to be moving away from the full-time stuff, and she's only going to be doing Saturday night's main event. So she's still going to be in the company, working for the company, doing stuff with the company, but she's not going to be the regular SmackDown ring announcer anymore. She's just going to be doing the SNMEs. And I think that's good. Lillian's a legend. I mean, she's, you know, not super young anymore either, so I don't know if she wants to be on the road full-time doing all that, but she is a legendary voice. Aside from Howard, she's my favorite ring announcer of all time in WWE. I love Lillian, always have. Always been a big Lillian mark. So I think bringing her in 4 times a year to do the Saturday night's main events, that's perfect. That's a perfect role for her. And I might even prefer that over her being there full-time, to be honest. So all the best to Lillian. We love you. Show opened up last night with an LA Knight promo. He was interrupted by Jimmy Uso. Jimmy wants a U.S. title match. I kind of like that idea, actually. Jimmy going for the U.S. title, Jay going for the world title. But before anything can really get underway there between those two guys, the bloodline interrupts. Solo Sikoa damn near lets out an accidental F-bomb on the mic, which was pretty funny. They hit the ring. They attack LA Knight and Jimmy Uso until Braun Strowman makes the save. And it's one of those typical segments where a bunch of guys fight. Out comes the general manager to make a 6-man. And that's what Adam Pearce did. Was it Pearce or was it Aldis? It was Aldis, obviously, who made the 6-man to be the first match on the card. And it was going to be LA Knight, Jimmy Uso and Braun Strowman taking on the Bloodline. Strowman got the win for his team with a power slam and a pin on Tama Tonga. After the match, Soloist Sikoa attacks Strowman. LA Knight runs him off into the crowd, leaving Jacob out there to recover from his bump, gets in the ring and hits 3 moonsaults on Braun Strowman. And I guess after that, Strowman is recovering on the outside of the ring, and Jacob comes running through and does the barricade spot. They love that timekeeper barricade spot. I'm getting really tired of that, to be honest. It's too obvious. Every time somebody crashes through the barricade, it's always in that same spot. That's what bugs me. If you want to do a barricade spot and gimmick it to where it breaks away, fine, but change it up. And, obviously, if you go into the crowd, you might hurt little Jimmy or something, so you don't want to do that. But it's just annoying when you can tell there's going to be a barricade spot. You can sniff these things out over a minute before they happen. And it's just not original. It's just, it's overused. And I do not like the timekeeper barricade spot in WWE. They pull it out way too often. Way too often. They use it more than AEW uses blood. Think about that, and that's true. So enough with the timekeeper barricade spots. They're stupid. If you want to do barricade spots, do them once every 2 months and spread them out around your ringside area. If you want to do it in another part of the ringside area, just make sure there's no fans there, and then do it over there. It just looks so stupid when you do it in the same spot every time. Maybe the toys are built the same way. Maybe the ring sets and they have a little barricade and that's the part that breaks off in the toy. I don't know. But it's always the same spot. It's annoying and I hate it. Anyway, always fun to see Jacob and Braun Strowman, though, mixing it up. And I'm really enjoying these two guys murdering each other on a weekly basis. I think it was last week Jacob went through the table, right, and got right up. He kicked out at 0 after a DDT in the six-man match from LA Knight. So I don't know if they're still going to be moving towards a Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa match at WrestleMania. Right now, Jacob and Solo seem to be back on the same page after some miscommunication. I was worried that fans have stopped caring so much about Solo Sikoa that he doesn't even deserve a WrestleMania match against Jacob Fatu. And that might be what WWE is thinking as well. They might just put Jacob Fatu in a completely different situation. I would have Jacob win the United States title and beat LA Knight, or he can be a part of a multi-person match for that. And maybe you could put Solo in it too, and then that could, maybe if it's Jimmy, you could do that. You could do Jimmy, Solo, Jacob, LA Knight, 4-way. That would be one 4-way that wouldn't feel super lazy, because the Jacob and Solo dynamic in that might be fun, because Jacob isn't going to give a shit, but Solo's really going to have to be on his toes in that match, and you could have Solo win. You could have Solo win the U.S. title after Jacob has the match won, and then Solo comes in and wins the title. That typical spot they do in a triple threat a lot. Somebody hits their finisher, then they get tossed out of the ring. They jump on top of them, get the pin. Something like that. Jacob hits the fucking 3 moonsaults. He gets taken out by... he hits the 3 moonsaults on Jimmy. Then he gets taken out by LA Knight or something, and then Solo jumps on top of Jimmy and pins him for the win. And then you can have Jacob Fatu take the title off of Solo and just do it on TV, or do it at Backlash and keep that match off of WrestleMania. And then you keep LA Knight protected by not even losing the fall. I don't know, just an idea. We'll see what they do with all those guys, but it smells like something for that United States title is going to happen at WrestleMania now, and there should be no fear of LA Knight being off the show, because Jimmy Uso said in his promo that he was desperate. Getting a shot at that might be my last chance to get into WrestleMania, which implies there will be a U.S. title match at WrestleMania, which also implies there will be an Intercontinental title match as well. Now it just remains to be seen if the women get that same honor. I'm doubtful. We will see. We had the weird sit-down with Jade Cargill on Smackdown that was taped earlier on in the day with Kathy Kelly. Kathy asking the tough questions here, because we have had some questions. And one of them was like, why wasn't Jade talking to Bianca? So Jade was saying all these things, and she said that she knew Naomi had attacked her because she saw her walking away. So she knew it was Naomi. But why doesn't your phone work? Why weren't you telling Bianca this? Is Jade saying she was telling Bianca and Bianca didn't care? That clearly is not the case, because Bianca was going apeshit in the pod when Jade attacked Bianca at the Elimination Chamber. So she says that she knew Naomi did it. And then when she said, and then I saw Bianca team with her like nothing happened. I'm like, well, according to the story here, Bianca doesn't know this. So why are you mad at Bianca? And then the two of them had that really great, kind of look at each other the previous week after that great Naomi and Bianca segment last week on SmackDown, and they kind of made eye contact with each other, and Bianca seemed to be like, yeah, go do what you got to do. I don't blame you. So I didn't realize there was a problem there, but maybe there is. And before she can kind of reveal too much more, in walks Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Liv is really good at her character. God damn, she's a fucking annoying little twat, isn't she? And she's so good at it. She's like no, I don't want to say Ricochet because she's better than Ricochet. She's really good. Like when I say annoying little twat, that's a compliment. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is. When you're, in creative and they're saying your character is to be an annoying little twat, that girl has hit a fucking home run. She plays it perfectly. She's so annoying. I bet you she even, like you could see even Jade, even though they're working, Jade looked visibly annoyed with her, because she just doesn't shut up. She talks over you. She's, ugh. So that whole thing was actually pretty good. And Jade said, I'll see you next week. So match, Jade Cargill versus Liv Morgan next week on SmackDown. I feel like that's going to be a DQ. I don't know if we're going to get a straight up win there unless, I feel like Naomi might interfere. We'll see. I don't know if Jade's just going to straight up beat Liv, but if she did, Liv would deserve it because, man, she was a little asshole in that segment. We had Charlotte Flair defeating B-Fab in a one-on-one match, figure 8 for the win. Tiffany Stratton then comes out, and they begin to have this just really crazy pull-apart. Everything about this was the best Tiffany and Charlotte segment we have seen so far, except for 2 noticeable ugly parts. So we have the figure 8, we get the win. Tiffany comes out, they're brawling. Insane pull-apart, referees, officials, everybody out there trying to get these women away from each other. Tiffany goes up to the top, does her big Tiffany swanton off the top onto all the officials and Charlotte. The only problem is Charlotte was 9 feet away. She landed on all the officials, but no Charlotte. Then they continue to brawl. More pull apart, can't separate them. They now are all back in the entrance area, which they had one of those minimalist sets last night for SmackDown, which looked really good. And she climbs up to the top of the video wall, the ledge there, and then she does another Tiffany dive. And the same thing happens. A whole gob of officials, and Charlotte is in there somewhere, and Tiffany, no shit, has got to be 6 or 7 feet away from Charlotte. Doesn't even touch her. Like the whole group of people is here. Charlotte is sitting right here, and Tiffany dives way over here. Just completely misses her both times. So if she would have landed those, or if those would have looked a little bit better, I think the segment would have been a lot better. But the segment was dog shit to me because of that. Again, if you see that in AEW, those botch account runners are going to go blind from jizzing in their own eye. So it's crazy sometimes when you just see the double standard. But if something is bad, it's bad, and it doesn't matter what company it is in. You know what I mean? Something is stupid in AEW, call it out. Something stupid in WWE, call it out. That's what we do. That's what we should be doing as wrestling fans. Not worrying about which company's doing it. Who cares? If something sucks or something doesn't look good, we need to recognize that. And this didn't look good, but it was still the best Tiffany and Charlotte segment we have had so far, because every week Charlotte's just come out and smacked around Tiffany, and that's been it. This time, Tiffany showed that she's not to be pushed around, and she really held her own. I just wish those dives would have looked better. So I said that was the best Tiffany and Charlotte segment so far. Last night, we also got the best Miz TV segment in history. Miz TV, that's been a thing for years and years and years. The best one we ever got was last night. It was Cody Rhodes coming out to the ring to be a guest on Miz TV, climbs to the ropes to do the music cue, and Miz cuts him off. Cody gets in the ring and just beats the shit out of Miz. Crossroads him, throws him over the top rope, whatever he did. Just punched him, kicked his ass. It took Cody 3 full seconds to beat the piss out of the Miz and get him out of the ring. Cody gets on the mic and says, I'm not interested in talking to anyone unless his name is John Cena. Short, sweet, to the point. I liked it. Cody has been on TV 3 times, I believe, since the heel turn, 2 SmackDowns and 1 Monday Night Raw. The first I guess the first appearance last week I loved on SmackDown. I didn't think the Monday Night Raw was necessary on Monday, but it's a long show. I think Cody was there just to put Cody on the show, but I didn't think he really needed to be there. But tonight was another night that I really liked because then he was a guest on Miz TV to perhaps talk about the situation, but instead just beats up the Miz and says, I don't care about anybody except John Cena. You're the one I want to talk to. I'll see you on Monday. If you're going to be in Belgium, I'm going to be in Belgium too, having some waffles. So Cody will be there. He's mad. Really liked his energy, and I really liked that Cody so far, he's obviously carrying this thing for the moment because Cena's not on TV. So I'm glad that Cody had a little bit of a different dynamic to it. He is not taking this lightly. He is not behaving the way Cody always does. He's selling this as a really big deal. He is selling this as a huge betrayal. He is selling this as very personal. And it was, it's hard to do that because it was already very personal last year. So how Cody reacts to this, I think also is just as crucial as how, Cena looks on Monday night when we see him for the first time. And so far, I think Cody is doing great, selling the importance and the magnitude of this, and now it's all up for them just to finish the execution. So far, so good with Cody. I've been liking him in all of his appearances since the big heel turn. We had Damian Priest defeating Shinsuke Nakamura by disqualification when Drew McIntyre showed up and laid out Damian Priest, beat the hell out of him, and wound up smashing him in the face with the steel steps. And their issue continues to get more personal and more violent. It's all but confirmed now, even though I don't think it's been official, but it's definitely going to be Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest at WrestleMania. And I was thinking last night about this. I said, I feel like a lot of fans, and maybe even Priest and McIntyre, might be a little bit disappointed with this spot on the Mania card. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And I understand that. But at the same time, not everybody can't be involved in the world title scene. Drew McIntyre had a hell of a 2024. That feud with CM Punk was terrific. It's the best work I feel like Drew has ever done. So maybe in his head, maybe in the fans' minds, he should be rewarded with a title victory at WrestleMania. Sure, I can understand that thought process, but that's not really the storyline they have in mind right now. So unfortunately, plus when you combine Priest just had a pretty long run with the world title last year as well. Unfortunately, it's just reality. It's just the nature of the business sometimes. There's just not a spot for either one of them in the world title scene right now. There will be. I'm pretty sure Drew McIntyre will find his way back to that title, maybe even this year, and will be involved in some championship matches and whatnot. Damian Priest probably will as well. But in the meantime, they've got to do something. So they are putting them in a program together. And I have a feeling that Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre are going to intend on making us remember their WrestleMania match, because otherwise it's just a Smackdown match. Otherwise, it's just a match you could do on any show, TV, Netflix, pay-per-view, whatever. There's really nothing special about it. So let's make it special. Let's have a super fun build between now and then. And what I would like to see is for them to do something a little bit different and unique in their WrestleMania match. You could book a stip, some sort of street fight stip, but that would just be kind of typical. I don't need trash cans and shopping carts. I don't need some silly bump off a platform. I always think back to what Shane McMahon and The Miz did, whatever the fuck that was. It was just to do it, and I'm like, I don't want just something typical like that. Oh, let's make this match memorable by having them fall off the Titantron or something. Like, I don't really need that. I don't need a crash pad and some crazy stunt. I just need something different and unique. And something different and unique could be as simple as both guys bleeding. You don't have to go nuts. You don't need to bust out the Tony Storm and Mariah May broken glass, with the taped fists. We don't need, barbed wire baseball bats and thumbtacks and razor blades and screwdrivers. We don't need all of that. You can bust out some weapons, sure, but you don't have to go nuts with the weapons. This is WrestleMania. Grandma's watching. So we don't need to go full backyard wrestling here. But if you just did something as simple and unique, it's very rare in WWE these days to have a match where both guys are bleeding. So if you got a couple of crimson masks and you've got this refuse to die war going on, between these two guys. At the end of Kyle Fletcher and Ospreay, Fletcher was like, "I hate you, motherfucker." The way he was just screaming. Some sort of an intense finish like that, where both of these guys hate each other so much they refuse to lose to the other, even if it means they have to die right there in the fucking ring. So some sort of crazy war that won't take away or overshadow the rest of the pay-per-view or something like that. Something different, something unique. Dust off an old finish that we haven't seen in 40 years. Do something different. Now, I think at the very least, we're going to get a Bad Bunny run-in. So maybe he factors into the decision. And then we get a Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre tag team match at Backlash. Something like that could be fun. But whatever they do between Priest and McIntyre at Mania, I think it needs to try to stand out somehow. Because if it's just a run-of-the-mill match and you just have a 17-minute match with a Claymore and a pin, you could just do that on SmackDown. That can main event any SmackDown in any week. So if it's going to be at WrestleMania and you just do a typical match that's not bad, I mean, it's a good match, but nothing special happens, nothing crazy. It's just a match that you would normally see on TV or any run-of-the-mill pay-per-view. If the rest of WrestleMania is really good, we're going to forget all about that match. And I don't think Priest or McIntyre want that. I think Priest and McIntyre want to show the fans and management that they deserve a better spot on this card. So they're going to remind everybody their value in this match. And that's what I'm hoping that they do. So I hope that it turns out to be something like that. I hope that these guys give us something special and different that we weren't expecting to see. That way, when the show ends and WrestleMania is over, we'll say, man, that McIntyre and Priest match surprised the hell out of me. That's what I'm hoping they do. Another thing that I think might be fun, at least while there's until there's a little bit more like wiggle room in your world title scenes, maybe Priest and McIntyre wind up doing the Sheamus and Cesaro thing. Imagine that team. Not necessarily do a best of 7, but have their rivalry conclude with them having mutual respect. Then they decide to team up. And you've got a modern day Brothers of Destruction. And you just spend a couple of months having them murder everyone. Have them win both sets of tags. Have them go to NXT and win those too. Have them collect belts. You got Priest and Drew with 3 championships each around their necks because they've just went out and beat every tag team in the universe. Send them to TNA. Beat those tag team champions too. Who's got them? The Hardys? Fucking beat the Hardys. Now they got 4. Just unstoppable. And then once you have a little bit more room and one of them can get back into the world title scene, you split them up. This is not permanent, just temporary. It gives them something to do. Might be kind of fun. Imagine that Brothers of Destruction type tag team, McIntyre and Priest. I think they'd be unstoppable. We had a really fun match last night that fans were hoping to see. A lot of fans were hoping that Axiom would wrestle because he is from Madrid. And that's what happened. Gunther came out there and he said, had a little pre-match promo, and he said, "I heard there's a kid," which used to be Axiom's name. "They call him the best wrestler in Spain, and I'm going to prove that means absolutely nothing. So here he is. Here is your hero, Axiom." Axiom comes out, huge pop, and they have a super fun match, and Gunther got tested. This was a great outing for Axiom. Really happy to see him wrestle in front of this audience on this night against the World Heavyweight Champion. Gunther gave him a fun match. Axiom, of course, one half of the NXT Tag Team Champions with Nathan Frazier. As Fraxium, they're all sorts of fun. Frazier's another guy that I really, really like. You can see that Seth Rollins training in him. Holy shit. So Axiom gets a huge pop. Takes Gunther to the limit. In the end, though, it's the powerbomb, lariat, second powerbomb for the win. And Gunther puts Axiom down hard and then locks in a sleeper and chokes him out after the match, much to the chagrin of the Barcelona audience. Fun match, fun stuff, and we'll see, as it relates to Gunther, it was weird that he was here on SmackDown as the World Heavyweight Champion, and they put him on this show because SmackDown kind of sucks lately. But last night it didn't. It was really good, and I enjoyed the Gunther and Axiom match. Still don't know, I don't know if it's a guarantee that Jay is going to win or not at WrestleMania. We talked a lot about that on Monday night. We'll have a better idea as we get closer. But Jey Uso right now winning the title seems kind of likely from where I'm sitting. We will see. Paul Heyman made the trip to Barcelona last night to cut a promo. He said that Roman Reigns is busy doing stuff for the 2K25 video game, but will address the CM Punk and Seth Rollins situation next week in Italy. And I believe next week in Italy, it's in Bologna, Italy. Next week is that Smackdown, yeah. So Bologna, Italy is where Smackdown is next week, and Roman Reigns will be there. Now, we assume, of course, this is going to be the beginning of the process to get to that triple threat match. I think what they might do is have him come out and address Punk first, and then they tie Rollins in. I don't know, but then again, Roman stomped Rollins and then annihilated Punk. Plus, Paul Heyman, how he factors into this, I don't know. Maybe what the favor is going to wind up being is that Heyman just helps Punk win in the triple threat match. Punk said, you owe me a favor, or Heyman owes him a favor, and, Punk's going to figure out a way to cash that in. So if Heyman is going to be at ringside for this, maybe he turns on Roman and joins Punk, and Punk is now a heel with Paul Heyman. I don't know. I don't know. But maybe that's just what the favor is at this point, because it won't be a WrestleMania main event unless it main events night one. Unless Roman, Punk, and Rollins is a night one main event, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. That would be a lame main event for CM Punk. But it could. It could. Maybe that's the best he's going to get. Also, last night we had Randy Orton, who the fans sang to the ring. Very cool to hear them sing his song. That's why international crowds are the best. He defeated Carmelo Hayes after the match. He tries to shake Carmelo's hand, but he kind of just pie faces Orton. So Orton hits him with another RKO, which was kind of funny. And then Orton is going to go for a punt on Carmelo when Kevin Owens shows up at ringside. Orton chases after him. They brawl. Owens winds up running away. So Owens is back, and he saved Melo from getting punted by Randy Orton. So we know we're going to get that match at WrestleMania as well. Still don't know where Sami Zayn is going to fit into that. I really would be surprised if he wouldn't be booked for Mania because of an injury angle, unless he's really injured and this is some time off. But I feel like if he's just dealing with some nagging injuries, then you work Mania and then you deal with your nagging injuries. So Sami Zayn being invisible from WrestleMania just does not seem to be an option for me, or seem likely to me. So I feel like he's going to get involved in this somehow. And I actually pitched the possible idea of a triple threat between those three, having 2 triple threats, 1 on each night of WrestleMania, featuring 6 of your top stars, and then it could be a little internal competition between the 6, see which triple threat is better kind of thing, and Sami Zayn coming back, wanting revenge against Kevin Owens, but unfortunately the match has already been booked between Owens and Orton at WrestleMania, so then maybe they do something where they let him in and they add him to it, and it's a 3-way. I don't know. He could be the referee, but that would be tough to justify given the bad blood with Sami and Owens. Another thing they could do is they could make him the referee, and then Sami Zayn could turn on Randy Orton. And what would be cool about that is that with Owens and Sami, the fans will never be in a position to say something does or doesn't make sense with them, because their relationship throughout the years, all the way back to the Ring of Honor days, through the NXT days, into WWE, friend, foe, they love each other and have Christmas dinner with each other. One year, the very next year, one of them is home invading the other. I mean, it's crazy. The volatility. It's like the crypto market. So fans can't sit there and say that whatever these guys do isn't making sense, because nothing they've ever done has made sense. Their relationship is so up and down that who knows what conversations happened off television that led to Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn turned on Randy Orton. That doesn't make sense. What do you mean it doesn't make sense? Who cares if he got package pile drive by Owens a couple of weeks ago on pay-per-view? Who cares? They have been around each other for so long that you can never tell. And then they're a team again. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens is an evil team this time. Just an idea, just a thought. But either way, I don't see how Zayn misses Mania. He's got to be there. If not, he's going to be in a non-wrestling role, I suppose. Maybe like CM Punk was last year. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe Zayn isn't going to be in a match. Maybe he will be the guest announcer or on the commentary team for Orton and Owens. And then, of course, he gets involved. I don't know. He'll do something. The Street Profits won the WWE Tag Team titles last night from DIY in the main event of Smackdown in a pretty fun match. Montez hitting the big splash for the win. And somebody had pointed out that it's their first tag team title win since 2021. How is that possible? I thought they were tag team champions like 6 months ago. How has it been 4 years, and what the hell is happening with my memory? So that's wild. That blew my mind. But congrats to DIY, or I'm sorry, congrats to the Street Profits on their victory over DIY and capturing those brand new looking tag team championships, which are going to look really great on those guys. So I'm happy they are back on top. Hopefully, Street Profits can get back to past glory. I thought we would have been well into our Montez singles run by now, but they have not even started that. So I don't know what happened there, but Street Profits, tag team champions once again. Also, last night on SmackDown, it should be noted that WWE ran two very, very interesting video teasers. One of them is obvious. The first one, of the orange background and the silhouette, I believe, on top of some ring ropes, is clearly Rey Fenix. Nothing too unsure about that. That's pretty clear. Rey Fenix is who that silhouette was. The vignette airing on SmackDown, however, though, doesn't mean he's going to be on SmackDown. We could see the same vignette on Monday, so keep a lookout for that. The other one was black with some smoke with the number 4. Now, there's a little bit less evidence here, but a lot of people are assuming it's going to be Aleister Black. I'm assuming it's going to be Aleister Black. I don't know what the significance of the number 4 is. Somebody brought up that when he was reading his book before he left WWE, I think he left off on chapter 4. Somebody said it's the amount of bumps he's going to agree to take in the whole year is 4. So I don't know the significance of the number 4 at all. And also, I don't know if we're going to see the vignette on Raw. We might. So it feels like that's going to be Rey Fenix and Aleister Black. Well, it's definitely going to be Rey Fenix, but Aleister Black, it may or may not be him, but I'm kind of hoping it's him, and we'll see when these debuts are made, if it's before Mania, if it's after Mania, or if it's at Mania with one of these guys. We will have to wait and see, but I feel like they're starting to head towards the direction of maybe booting out Finn Balor of the Judgment Day, and maybe they overhaul the group and Aleister Black is the leader. But even if that was the case, I think Aleister Black would be weird because there's a comedic element to Judgment Day with Dominic and Liv and JD and stuff. So I don't know how Black would fit into that, So if they bring Black in, or I know they are, when Aleister Black returns, I kind of hope he's just a single star, to be honest, because I don't know if he'd really be a good fit for a new leader of the Judgment Day based on the faction's current persona or personalities in the group, unless he's coming in to completely overhaul it and not only kick out Balor, but kick out Carlito and Dominic as well. I don't know, because Dominic is better as Dominic. I don't want him to turn into like corporate ministry Dominic. That wouldn't be fun. So I don't know, but it sounds like they're on their way, and it'll be cool to see when Phoenix gets there to see how closely associated he'll be with Penta, if he's even going to be on the same show. if they team them up or if they try to just have them on separate singles runs, but they're still going to have to acknowledge the relationship between the two. It's going to be weird if they're just not pretending that these two guys aren't brothers. So I don't know. We'll see. I got to shout out the amazing NXT Roadblock show this past Tuesday that was at the theater in Madison Square Garden. And that theater is a cool setup. It looked so awesome. That is an iconic ceiling there. I've never been to Madison Square Garden. It's a bucket list thing for me. I definitely want to go one day. But I always remember this venue as being known as the Paramount. It was the overflow venue for WrestleMania 10. They put a bunch of fans in there, played WrestleMania on the big screen. Randy Savage went over there after he beat Crush and got a promo, and it was fun. So I've always remembered that venue for that. So to see NXT set up there, I'm like, oh, that's going to look so cool with like a ring set up in there. And it did. It looked awesome. And all the matches were terrific. They had the Hardy Boys. It's just crazy when that match was over to hear the ring announcer, and your winners and still TNA Tag Team Champions. It's just this working agreement is still surreal to me. Hardy Boys defeating Fraxium to retain the TNA Tag Team titles. That was a good match. Jordan Grace and Roxanne Perez was a good match. Oba Femi and Moose, my God. Oba Femi, he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous. Man, he's got like, I just think of when we've had these hopefuls, these hopeful big men that we hope can become huge stars. We've seen it with, remember like Lars Sullivan and who else is, who's another example of somebody who's just like really big that we got really, really excited about, like Braun Strowman back in the day, but just never really panned out the way we thought. I feel like Oba Femi is a can't miss. I just don't know how he's not going to see great things on the main roster one day. He is such a beast. You know, I'd call him a Moose. Unfortunately, his opponent is Moose, and that was a hard-hitting ordeal with Oba Femi getting the win over Moose, who is the current X Division champion in TNA. And Stephanie Vaquer and Julia was such a fun match. I guess they kind of hot-shotted this match a bit because I think Julia is reportedly working through some injuries, so she's going to take some time off. So she needed to drop the title. So as predictable as the outcome was of this, didn't make the match any less good. My God, two of the best in the game. That one counter with Vaquer doing her corkscrew thing off the top rope and lands right into the, I don't know, the whatever that submission was. One of the smoothest transitional counters I've ever seen. My God, they are so tremendous. And that was a really, really fun match. Vaquer getting the win, beating Julia, and now she's a double champion because she went into that match as the reigning Women's North American champion already. So we'll see how Shawn Michaels and NXT handles a double champion. Last time I remember a double champion was Keith Lee, but before he even got going in that run, they pulled him to the main roster. So we never really got to see how NXT is going to handle a situation like that with a double champion because, you know, unless Stephanie is just holding the title for a little while until they put it on somebody else on the world title scene, I don't know why she would even hold on to the North American title. So the next event is going to be Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania weekend. I don't know if there's a couple of women that she could have a triple threat match with. What was it was WrestleMania 16, right? It was, let's see who was in that. It was Angle, Benoit, and Jericho, European and Intercontinental title match, right? And it was, I think it was like first fall was European, second fall was IC or vice versa, something like that. Do you want to try that? I don't know what you do. So I'm curious how they're going to handle Stephanie Vaquer being a double champion, but she looks good with two belts. That's a huge pickup from WWE. She had that match with Mercedes at Forbidden Door, and next thing you know, she's here in NXT, and now she's got two titles already less than a year from when that happened. Just unbelievable. WWE, they saw the talent in her, and they brought her in. Also, speaking of TNA, they ran Sacrifice last night. And I have a question. What in the fuck is that white girl Tessa Blanchard doing? Explain it to me. Explain it to me like I'm 5. Because holy shit, she took on Lei Ying Lee, who was the former in WWE Xia Li, right? And I guess the match is in El Paso, right? And she got played to the ring live by this Spanish female rapper. It was kind of a weird entrance. And she also did like a pre-match video promo all in Spanish. And she's got the headband, and all of a sudden she's, trying to act like she understands this culture or something. I don't know. She speaks good Spanish, but she was getting ripped to shreds. The video responses on like social media, I was laughing my ass off. Especially people, of Mexican heritage or who speak Spanish or have Mexican families, Latino families. They were not kind to Miss Tessa Blanchard, and it was a pleasure to read that stuff. And she just looked ridiculous. Like, what the fuck are you doing? She won her match, by the way, but I'm having trouble understanding what TNA is thinking. Dudes, this isn't going away. I don't know if they thought, let's just bring her back and eventually just things cool off. Time heals all wounds. People forget about it. Nobody is forgetting about anything. There's very few people supporting Tessa Blanchard. I think I'm not going to blame any of her opponents. TNA brought her in. A lot of the talent did not want her, most notably Jordynne Grace, who had to work with her and drop the title to her on her way out and didn't even acknowledge her in the backstage love fest when she was leaving, just walked right past her, didn't even fucking look at her ass. Nobody likes her. She has such a horrible reputation, and the stories that have been corroborated by so many women throughout the business in both companies, that the fans aren't letting this go. They're not. They don't want her around. And TNA has gotten nothing but negative feedback. Any match that she's in has got more thumbs down than thumbs up on the internet. Every video they post of her is ratioed to death. People quote tweeting it, hating on it, shitting on Tessa Blanchard, telling her to go away. I don't know if this is WWE saying, hey, we think Tessa's very talented. We'd like to use her, but maybe you guys can bring her back first and try to erase her controversy. And then once that's repaired a little bit, we'll bring her on. Basically using TNA as a way to kind of cleanse Tessa, but it isn't working. Fans aren't going to let this shit go, man. They're not. And it hasn't gotten any better for Tessa, and I just don't think it's going to. I think she's always going to be met with extreme hate from the audience, and it's deserved. She blew her reputation. It's her own fault. And she's done enough damage to so many different women in the world and various companies that I can't see a locker room where she would be welcomed in. But we'll see. She got a win last night. Also, Masha Slamovich defended successfully her TNA title against her Knockouts title, defeating Cora Jade. That's kind of fun. Moose defeated Jeff Hardy in a ladder match. So Hardy was in a tremendous match at Roadblock. I thought one of the better Hardy Boy matches I've seen in a while. Here he's in a ladder match last night against Moose, and he goes down, and Moose retains the X Division title. Ooh, I like that, Ryan. There are super chats that I will be answering, but I like that Survivor Series rumor for San Diego. I will be there. Yeah, I have to go. Also, last night we had Mustafa Ali defeating Mike Santana. Sounds like Ali dislocated his jaw in that match, so best of luck and best wishes out to Ali recovering from that. And they had the big steel cage match, multi-man tag match thing, Joe Hendry, Hardy, Elijah Nemeth, Leon Slater. And they defeated the System and the Colognes. After the match, Nick Nemeth turned heel on Matt Hardy and attacked him after the main event was over. So that was kind of your Slammiversary. Or I'm sorry, Sacrifice, not Slammiversary. TNA Sacrifice. Did I call it Slammiversary earlier? It's Sacrifice. TNA Sacrifice. All right, let's talk a little bit about Dynamite also, because we had some interesting things on here. Now, one thing we had that wasn't that interesting is what we heard from Jon Moxley. Now, Jon Moxley did one of his Death Riders pre-tape vignette promo things, and they announced that next week on Dynamite, Moxley's going to defend the AEW Championship in a street fight against Cope. So they're going to run back the terrible main event of Revolution, A main event that ruined the show for a lot of people. We watched it here live together. I loved the show, and I wasn't that freaked out with the main event of Revolution because I predicted Jon Moxley to win. I wasn't expecting him to lose, so I wasn't going to be disappointed because that's what I thought they were going to do. So after the match, when a lot of people are like shitting their pants over it, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm just not understanding. Like, I understand how fans are. When they are tired of a title run, they are as predictable as gravity. They are very easy to predict their behavior, what they say, what they do, what they want. Very easy. Fucking chimp can figure this out. So I wasn't surprised by any of that because that's what happens with every champion in any company, any time period in history. When somebody is holding the title too long, it becomes a point where this is the same thing with Asuka, Shayna Baszler, all these people. It's even been recent history. You can see examples of this. The fans do not care. They just want the title off of them. And I'm like, well, he was wrestling Cope. Do we really want Cope as the AEW champion? Especially if Swerve just became the number one contender earlier on in the show. Wouldn't it be better if Swerve just beat Moxley instead of Cope beating Moxley? And I understand the finish of Revolution also kind of sucked with Christian getting involved, and the whole thing just was a wet fart. I get it, but the outcome wasn't really pissing me off. Maybe the match hurt the show a little bit. Yeah, but the outcome to me didn't. I've changed my tune on that a little bit, though, this week, because the more and more I see and the more and more I hear from fans, I don't think this is doing AEW any good to keep this going. Now, Swerve Strickland is the number one contender. He's going to get the match at Wrestle Dynasty. I'm hoping on Wednesday night we don't get a title change, to be honest, with Cope. I think maybe AEW is doing this to erase the overwhelming negative feedback on the main event of Revolution because all of it has been bad. Maybe Cope and Moxley want to make that better. Maybe they want to run it back and show that they can have a good match or something. Now that it's a street fight stipulation, you can do a whole lot of other things. But either way, even if they have a great match, Moxley winning is just going to fire up social media. Oh my God, he wins again. I'm like, they have no patience for anything. And I have more patience than 99.999% of the wrestling audience. I'm willing to wait for AEW, or I should say, willing to wait for AEW to see the Death Riders angle through. I'm more than willing to do that, especially if it's going to end next month or maybe even at Double or Nothing, whether it's Swerve. I've kind of always had Darby Allin on my mind because when he comes back, he'd be a perfect guy to beat Moxley, but then you're asking fans to wait a couple of more months. But let's just say that when they started this Death Riders angle last year, the end game creatively at the time was All In. What if All In is where Tony Khan has penciled in for Moxley to drop it? I think that would be terrific, especially if Will Ospreay, who declared for the Owen a little bit early here on Wednesday night, but he's already declared for the Owen, the winner of the Owen gets a title shot at All In. Ospreay winning and beating Moxley in All In would be great. It would be a great moment, but holy shit, that's a lot of months away still. So even though that idea might sound great back in September when this started, or in October when Moxley beat Danielson, the way the Death Riders angle has gone has been largely a disappointment. They've had some moments here or there, but we thought this was going to involve Shane McMahon and there's going to be a lot of other elements here. And then maybe Moxley and his faction's motivations were going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past from other factions, but it really hasn't. They're not that different than anything else we've ever seen. We haven't visualized the AEW championship in months because it's been in that briefcase the whole time. So you're asking us to wait until July? That means we've got Dynasty, we've got Dynamite, Dynasty, Double or Nothing, and probably at least one other title defense in there somewhere that Moxley's going to successfully defend the title. Man, you're going to have fans losing their shit. They're already losing their shit. They're already on the ledge. One more of these wins, they might just fly right off. So I now have changed my tune. I was of the opinion that whatever they have planned for Moxley's win, I would rather see that through than have them creatively pivot. Because whenever things are kind of going on in that company on the fly, it's just never good. And so you have to wonder are you so impatient that you just don't care what they do to the creative as long as it gets the belt off of Moxley? Or would you rather trust the planned ending that they have, knowing that if they change it, it can make it even worse? However, if they did change, this is all hypotheticals here, so I'm not saying anything is certain, but let's just say hypothetically the plan was all in. And now you find yourself in a position where you feel like you need to creatively pivot. There ain't a better number one contender to have right now in a pivot situation than the one you got, Swerve Strickland. So in my mind, if the plan was for Moxley to lose his title at All In, I would change those plans and I would do it at Dynasty. I would do it at Wrestle Dynasty because I don't think the fans are going to accept anything less. And prior to Revolution, I probably would have predicted Moxley to win at Dynasty too. I just don't think it's time yet. I think they're either waiting for Darby or they're waiting for All In. That's kind of what I've thought. So Swerve, I don't know when he's going to find his way back to that championship, if it isn't now. He won it last year at Dynasty, right? So at this point, I really hope that Swerve just beats Moxley because I think that would please a lot of fans. I think if you go one more pay-per-view with Moxley retaining, you've already turned off a good portion of your audience. I don't think that's going to do you any favors. Where if you've got Swerve winning, at least that ends the Moxley thing, and whatever you had planned for them going into All In, just make a different plan for those guys. And then you can have Swerve hold the title maybe until All In and drop it to Ospreay. I don't know. I don't know what you do and what the next, sequence of champions is in AEW. I want to see Hangman Page get back to the championship as well. And another guy might be in line, and that's MJF. I got to tell you, I'm very intrigued with him and MVP having that promo on Dynamite. MVP interrupted MJF after he was talking about his loss to Hangman Page at the pay-per-view. And after an intense stare down between the two, they both smiled and hugged, revealing that they're kind of homies and they're friends. So MVP then praises Max, but then offers some criticism as to why he might have lost. Winds up offering Max the Hurt Syndicate business card. And Max is like, hey, I might respect you, but I don't need your help. I don't know if you know, but I was AEW champion for over 400 days. And then MVP says, the key word there is was, and hands him the card again, and MJF takes it. So he might be the Owen Hart. All we need to do is get some yellow and black caution singlet for MJF, and he can be the Owen to this Nation of Domination. But I would love it if MJF joined the Hurt Syndicate. What backup? Think about the backup this guy's had in his life previously, in AEW, and now he's got these guys backing him up. You got to wonder, though, if that might lead to power struggles. Lashley, it's going to be hard for MJF to be the leader of the group chasing the world championship when you got Lashley standing there. But MJF being a part of the Hurt Syndicate, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Although, I don't know what... My God, the spray tan on some of these wrestlers. MJF looked absolutely horrendous. It's that orange, runny shit. And it's only on part of his face. It only goes to here, and then behind it is yellow. It just doesn't look right. So wrestlers, stop doing that spray tan shit. Just go in a tanning bed. My God. Also, Toni Storm came out for a victory speech after her phenomenal Hollywood ending match against Mariah May at Revolution that concluded with the big The End. One of the best just stories I've ever personally watched as a wrestling fan. So much fun. So much fun. I mean, when you talk about the stories of the decade, that's going to be the top of my list. Just so well done from start to finish. But now, what does Toni Storm do? Came out, said some Toni Storm stuff, and she got attacked from behind by Megan Bayne. So I think Megan Bayne will be Toni Storm's next challenger, and I think that's all it's going to be. Just a challenger. I don't think this is going to be a big program or anything like that. But I think it'll be probably a match at Dynasty. Toni defending against Bayne and beating her. That's my guess. Kenny Omega came out to cut a promo as well. He's the new international champion, of course, as he beat Konosuke Takeshita at Revolution. And he announced that him and Tony Khan came up with this great idea, or Tony Khan came up with this idea to do a title eliminator tournament, an 8-man tournament, the winner of which will face Kenny Omega for the International Championship at Wrestle Dynasty. So I think this is kind of lazy because it's a tournament to determine the number one contender for the international title, but the names in it are ridiculous. It's no top stars and people you would think you would want to have in it, probably because they already know who's going to win and they don't want anybody else to take losses. When I look at the field, I know who's winning this. It's going to be Ricochet. So Omega announced that it's going to be an eight-man tournament. Two of those matches were taking place that night on Dynamite. It was Orange Cassidy defeating Hechicero and the Beast Mortos taking on a wild card. And the wild card turned out to be Speedball Mike Bailey, who recently signed with AEW. We've been waiting for him to debut. First time debuting here in AEW. He's great, really fun match. He is all kinds of fun. He's got a fun style when he incorporates, his taekwondo and his karate and all that shit. Really, really fun wrestler. Glad that he's finally in AEW and gets the win over the Beast Mortos. And then tonight on Collision, we're going to get Shibata versus Ricochet and Mark versus Mark, Briscoe versus Davis. So Briscoe and Davis and Shibata and some of these names being in this thing, I get it, but I feel like that's a very lazy way to determine a number one contender for Kenny Omega, especially when it's a match. These guys are going to be in this tournament just to challenge for a title that they're not going to win, because Omega is going to carry this championship into All In to unify it with the Continental with Okada. So I don't even know what the point of this shit is. What I'm hoping happens is Ricochet wins this tournament. I think he has to. So Ricochet and Kenny would be a very attractive match for Wrestle Dynasty. So I'm hoping they just do that, but they could have just given Ricochet the shot. Do we need this 8-man tournament? Tony loves his tournaments, but this is one. And AEW, I will say, in all honesty, they're great at tournaments. But this is a tournament we just don't need. Don't need this. So, but we're getting it. So I should shut up. Like I said, next week we've got Cope versus Mox in that street fight. I'm honestly hoping that Cope does not win the title, unless Tony Khan really wants to pivot and he's like, okay, the fans are freaking out, let's just take the belt off of him next week. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think at the earliest will be Dynasty, and I think a lot of fans will be very happy if Swerve puts down Jon Moxley in some bloody war where he wins the championship. I'm hoping it happens, man. I'm hoping it happens. But Mox dropping the title next week probably shouldn't happen. Tonight on Collision, like I said, it's Ricochet versus Shibata. We got Briscoe versus Davis. Also, FTR will be taking on Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong. And Thunder Rosa taking on Megan Bayne. That should be pretty fun. So that's what's happening tonight on Collision. Let me see. What else have we not talked about yet? I think we've talked about mostly all of it. All right, now we can do Super Chats and talk to the chat since I haven't done that yet. Let's go all the way back to the top so I don't miss anybody. Again, if anybody hasn't hit the thumbs up button so far today on this Saturday, now would be a good time for that. I would appreciate it. I like the names for the title. AEW European title, AEW Intercontinental title. We could see that. Oh, yeah, Max Pokebro. Thank you for bringing that up. So apparently Hulk Hogan made some kids cry at a recent meet and greet where he's promoting his beer. He's on his beer tour, and he was in Montgomery, New York during a meet and greet last weekend. And he abruptly left, leaving fans mad and children crying. There was a video of some dad with his two kids in the back seat. And what kids know about Hulk Hogan? What kids are fans of Hulk Hogan? Hulk Hogan is 20, 30 years, 35 years past being the most over babyface. Any kids that liked Hulk Hogan are my age. So I'd be sad if I went to meet Bret Hart and then he left right when I'm the next person in line. Sure, that might upset me a little bit, but why would my kid be upset? And why does Hogan have little kids who are fans of his? How fucked up is that? I mean, if you do any Googling of Hulk Hogan, you're going to see a lot of unfavorable stories. So I don't understand what a kid would hear about Hulk Hogan that isn't anything but negative. How do you, it's just like Hogan's just got such a bunch of shit attached to his stupid name. I don't know how you can be a 10-year-old kid and have Hulk Hogan as your hero. That, that would be like, well, I guess that would have been like me as a kid, just finding somebody from the 30s or 40s to idolize. I mean, sure, it happens, but it's weird. So I don't know why any little kids even give a shit about Hulk Hogan to begin with. I'm more worried about, maybe some of the smaller kids or younger kids that might be a little traumatized by Cena's heel turn. But even Cena's heel turn, is, the kids that idolized him when they were kids, they're all like in their late 20s now. So Hulk Hogan, I don't know why he's got little kids that are crying for not being able to meet him. That's super weird. But for some reason, he just ditched out on his meet and greet because he's a piece of shit. But at the same time, I don't really have sympathy for the kids. You shouldn't look up to Hogan. Hogan should not be your hero. You should not want to meet him. So anybody that was upset or was crying, I have no sympathy for you at all. Get better heroes. Hulk Hogan is a piece of shit. And if you see a hero in him, I question whether or not you're a good person. So I don't have any sympathy for, well, maybe for the kids. Not their fault they have a shitty parent. If any small child is a fan of Hulk Hogan, it's the parents that made them a fan of that. They didn't discover that shit on their own, So why anybody would stand 4 hours in line to meet a football-skinned, racist wheelbarrow full of shit, I have no idea. So I'm sorry that your day got ruined, but find better heroes. Forgot to mention that. Ryan Adams, I saw that $50 drop come in from you a while ago. Thank you so much for that. Very generous super chat from our friend Ryan. Jade complaining about a bruise while Liv was showing off all her bruises and scratches is funny, but if she wasn't hurt and asking for the tour off when you just showed up in your first year with the company isn't a good look. Right. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion is, because whether or not there's a misunderstanding there with the time off or with her injury or whatever, any sort of perception, in the locker room that you're not one of them is not going to be a good look for you, especially when you just come in. And egos and things like that have always been a problem in wrestling, and it's hard to keep those in check. And so when you have a locker room that has relatively decent morale, even though in any women's locker room, I've refused to believe there's good morale. I always think that they all secretly hate each other. But, when it's good for the most part, and it's at least good on the surface, you don't want anyone coming in and fucking up that vibe. And whether it was intentional or unintentional, Jade seems to have disturbed that vibe a little bit. So, some of that blame has got to go on her, but none of us are back there. I would love to be a fly on the wall, I would love to hide in a duffel bag and just listen to everything those women are saying to each other, back there. And if I'd like to see the situation where 4 or 5 of them are talking shit about Jade, and then she walks in and then they all shut up, those type of things. Fun high school drama type of stuff. Ian Dunn is claiming it is a 5-year deal for Jade, so that's fun. Yes, Rock and Cena dinner date, Vontae. Somebody mentioned his music last night. I hope the music is good. I hope it's I Want to Sex You Up by Color Me Bad. It fits, doesn't it? Imagine John Cena coming out there in a suit and jet black hair. Ooh. Oh, my God. Good stuff. I don't know if Triple H will pony up for the song, though. Let's see. Ryan's got another 20 for us. Thank you for that. Street Profits lost the belts to Rude and Ziggler in 2021 and lost them to Ray and Dom. And then Ray and Dom lost them to the Usos at Money in the Bank when fans returned, which began the Usos' 622 title reign. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's been that long for this. Man, that is starting to scare me. The years, when you get to be my age, anybody in the chat that's like in your 40s or even late 30s, you know what I'm talking about. The years just fly by. The years are just going by. You just blink and you're like, oh, shit, they haven't held the tag titles in 4 years? Jesus Christ, man. That is just crazy to me. But, yeah, interesting stats. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. And also, the 5 from you after that is telling us that Fightful is reporting the early rumored city to host Survivor Series is San Diego. Well, that is great, because I will be there. I'm assuming that'll be down at the sports arena, because that's where all the Raws and Smackdowns are, but it might not. They might go somewhere else. I don't know. That's going to be fun. Survivor Series in San Diego. I would love that. I will definitely go to that show if it's here. 100%. Fun. I'm trying to think, since I've lived here, I don't know how many pay-per-views we've had. No big ones. Not a big four. Not a Money in the Bank. Nothing like that. I've only been to a couple shows here. I think I've been to 2 Raws, maybe a Raw and a Smackdown here at San Diego. All these, I've been here 15 years. And they're here 2 or 3 times a year. I think I've only gone twice. Crazy. Yeah, I hope it's here. Thank you for the 5, the new one. I don't have an answer to this question, but whatever happened to Nikki Bella coming back? Good question. I don't know. We saw her at the Royal Rumble. A lot of rumors were circulating that she was heading back in or negotiating to come back in with the company. Maybe they're saving her to bring her back in at WrestleMania for something. Or she can show up and do a run-in. Again, we've got... I would love it. I've kind of lost hope on this, so I don't really think it's going to happen. But I would really love it if the Raw after Manias would return to their past form and we would just get a great one of these years, just one that's unforgettable, would be great. And a lot of times, returns and debuts are a big reason why those shows can be fun. And I think if you bring Nikki Bella, Becky Lynch, Malachi or Aleister Black, Ray Fenix, a lot of people kind of waiting in the wings here to return, maybe even Miro or Rusev, who apparently, by the way, we should mention, Miro and CJ Perry have reconciled. They've even renewed their wedding vows. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. Good for them. I was sad to hear about their split. Didn't really know why they split. I always thought they seemed very happy. And the split didn't last very long. Apparently last summer, they began to reconnect and got back together. I think they're living together now, and they have remarried. So I don't even think they got a divorce. I think they just separated. They never even followed through with the full divorce, and they have renewed their wedding vows. That is really good news. Congrats to the happy couple. El Magnifico, Jeff Cobb, looks like he's heading to WWE. He's kind of joked about the rumors on Twitter, hasn't confirmed or denied anything because he's currently working in Japan right now. So if they're bringing him in, that's another one we could see maybe night after Mania, or just make a random run in somewhere, or, just ease him into NXT, debut him, and then, see how he progresses. I don't know. Barry, yeah, maybe the kid thought he'd be meeting Hulk from Marvel. That's possible. I don't know. I just don't know why a little kid would give a single solitary shit about Hulk Hogan. Shouldn't you have like a million different other heroes if you're like 11? I don't know what 11-year-olds are into these days, but it doesn't seem like Hulk Hogan would be one of them. But who knows? This world's crazy. Anyway, I got to get out of here, guys. I got to head to work now. Make sure you're here tomorrow night. Don't forget to join us. We're going to be watching WrestleMania 2. So if I was only 9 years old, a lot of you probably weren't born. Maybe some of you were. And we're going to be watching a very bizarre WrestleMania, but a fun WrestleMania tomorrow, going way old school. Before pay-per-view was even a thing, you had to go to closed circuit if you wanted to see this thing. So join us tomorrow night as we watch WrestleMania 2. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, and thank you so much for being here. As always, do me a favor, if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, do that on your way out the door, and I'll be catching you tomorrow for the Mania 2 watch-along. Peace, brother. Peace to you too, El Magnifico, and I love y'all. See you later. Peace.